All right. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Zach from Fixer Upper Fitness, and we're doing our frequently asked questions on Friday. We've been doing this for a little while now, and we're going to dive right in because I have a lot that I want to cover today. Hopefully, you guys are having a great time at home and being safe. Hopefully, you guys are having a nice Easter week, and you have some good things planned. If you have kiddos, uh, have some fun this weekend. But I hope you're enjoying your time and not too stressed out during this time. Just have some fun. Um, so for our FAQ today, our frequently asked question, a few weeks ago we had a poll question come out, and one of the most answered ones that folks wanted to hear a little bit about as far as fitness is what to do when you feel sabotaged in your workout from your friends and family and your peers and really the folks that you think are supposed to be supporting you. And so I want to unpack that a little bit today. So what to do when you feel sabotaged in your workout. So the first thing I want to do is take a look at the big picture. So if this relates to you, hey Alyssa, how are you doing? If this relates to you, it's probably because you recently made a change in your life for the better. Um, so and you and you initially made a change for a better, and you want your friends and family to be supportive, and initially they were supportive, um, and you're and you've noticed, hey, Ted and Kim Burns, how are y'all doing? So you initially made this change, and then you've noticed as things have gone on that your friends have kind of stopped the initial support that they had. Maybe as you start talking about your new fitness routine, they change the subject. Maybe they start scheduling some things around when they know you're going to be working out, asking to spend extra time with them. Suggesting that you have one more helping, or let yourself do something, stop being so strict, or they might say something like, you're not having any fun anymore, you're not doing anything. And so that's kind of the 30,000 foot perspective there of that picture. So you're trying to make this change, your initial support has begun to wane, and let's unpack why that happens. And it's important to realize that in the very beginning, it's very easy to support a friend or a family who's making a positive change because you care about that person, and so, or that person cares about you. As you first start, you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do this thing, and then they're going to say, you go. And honestly, and this is true for a lot of us, we're going to think in the back of our mind that, hey, they're not going to stick with it. I know that person, and so I'll support them for a little bit. But chances are, I know they're not gonna stick with it. And so it's easy to say, you go, honey, or you go, bud. You're doing a great job. But that support will start to wane away as you stay ambitious. And here's a few reasons why. I have 4 reasons why you feel like your support is diminishing, and why you feel like you may be sabotaged by your friends. Hello, Meredith Hazel Jones. How are you? So the first one, and this is very important and very key. A lot of these things are gonna be introspective as to what you can do to kind of shift your perspective. So the first thing is that you have been on this journey already, and so there's this whole I guess series of thinking that we talk about in fitness, and as far as getting yourself ready to make a change. It's this theoretical model, and so you've already been through this process, and who knows, you may have been talking about this or thinking about this to yourself for days, weeks, months. Some people it's years where you've been saying, I'm gonna do this thing and make myself better, but that's all been to yourself. And so when you go and make this change, you've built the foundation to make the change. And maybe your friends and family haven't quite made that change. And so when we come to change, very few people embrace change. There are a few rare ones out there who love to keep things interesting and love to change, but most folks, the support is going to wane when you make the change, because not only have you changed your behavior, you've changed their behavior a little bit. So that's the first thing, is you've changed your behavior. The second thing is you started to hang out with a different group of people. You have a new group of friends, maybe that have the same interests as you, and that's certainly going to have effect on your support group, because they're getting some of your time. That time that was theirs is now someone else's. This is probably the most Gwyneth. This is probably the most important one. This is probably the deepest, as things get a little hairy, a little sticky, and this is where a lot of the negative feelings actually may come up. And this is when your new activity, as it persists, not in the initial, but as it persists, you're going to start to shine a flashlight, or cause others to look at themselves and say, you know what are the things that I'm doing wrong? What are the decisions that I'm making that I'm not happy with, that your new activity is going to, or your new fitness journey or whatnot, is going to cause other folks to look at themselves, and it's going to cause folks to feel insecure about their own decisions making. So listen very carefully to this part, because while this is very important and it is very real, it is not your fault, okay? And so it's not your fault. It's much easier for someone else to try to look at you and bring you down by a comment or withdrawing support than it is for them to make the change. So I'll say that one more time. It's not your fault that folks start to withdraw their support or sabotage in this way, because it's much easier to bring you down than it is for them to make a change. Now, this is just theoretical. This is just something that may happen. I'm not saying this is your actual case, but be aware that as you make a positive change, you're going to make other folks take a look at themselves. And folks will be, they'll compare themselves to you, and that's probably what the loss of support is. So lastly, and probably least likely for most of your close support, is that your friends just might not be that good of friends. That's just the case. There are some friends out there just going to be toxic, and any sense of success in your life, they're going to want to tear you down, and that's just who they are. There's no other reason. They're just a toxic person. So when you start to make positive changes in your life, you're going to notice that there's going to be folks that don't want to make that change with you, and they're not going to change, and they're not going to support you from the get-go. And so it's actually a very easy way to kind of prune your friends, if you will, or prune your support group. If you start moving in a direction and you have friends that try to pull you back, cut them off. It's just not going to be good. So I don't want to get too much into the explanation here, but so those are the 4 things. I'll go through them one more time very quick. 4 ways that you might start feeling sabotage. The first is or why you might start feeling sabotage. The first is about you. It's a change that you make, and maybe your friends and family weren't ready for it. They didn't have the time to mentally prepare for you to make this big shift. 2 is you're spending that time that you were spending with them, you're spending it somewhere else, and so they feel hurt by it, and so they're naturally going to withdraw support. 3, and very important that you understand this, is that you're going to make that other folks feel maybe insecure, maybe start to question themselves and their own personal decisions when it comes to fitness, and it's easier for them to bring you down than for them to make the same corrective and healthy change. And 4th, you might just have some friends that aren't that great of friends. So what do we do? What do we do about it when we start to feel sabotage? I'll have 4 answers to those 4 feelings that we talked about in the beginning. And the first is very simple, and it's sort of courteous, and it's something that we don't really think about when we're making a change, and that is explain yourself. But just tell your friends and family and your support group why you're making the change. Remember, from the very beginning, they care about you a whole lot. They're your support group. So explain to them why you're making the change, and chances are they're going to understand. So an example of that would say, hey, I'm tired of being tired. So you've heard it before, sick of tired of being sick and tired, right? You said it all. That's a great excuse to make a change. 1 is you want to prove to yourself that you can do something hard. You want to build up your own self-esteem or build up your confidence. Number 3 is you say, I want to be in control of my decisions. Maybe that's a stress thing. Maybe it's with a nutrition thing, but I just want to have more control. And control is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to have control. And then that a lot of one that's highly motivated is you want to be a good example. So say, I have these kids. I want to make sure they know how important it is to take care of yourself. So those are some examples that you can use to your support group or spouse or whatnot. Say, hey, this is actually why I'm doing this, and that's going to make it a whole lot easier for them to support you through it. So just like last week, I asked the trainers at Fixer Upper, Mr. Hazel Morgan, Miles, Gwyneth, and Lydia to send in their tips. And so a lot of the tips they brought in had to do with this part of explaining yourself. So Morgan said, change your thought. This is the perspective. So change your thought means shift your perspective. It's usually not sabotaging as much as an unwillingness to change or suit your change. So that means, back to that first time, they may not be ready for your change as much as you are, right? Lydia said, communication is key, right? Sitting down and sharing your heart with your support group can change their understanding of your actions. In turn, it can also help that person that feels sabotaged to put boundaries in place and avoid triggers. So that's a great example from Lydia. Miles said something very similar. Explain your goals and your lifestyle to your support group. Express why you're doing what you're doing. Let your family and friends know that your change will not negatively impact your relationships. Be patient with your peers. Stay positive and committed. Over time, your family may jump on board. That's a positive. That's a great tip from Miles. And so that was the first tool to avoiding sabotage, is to just explain yourself. The second one goes along with that, and that is be polite. This is something, it's a pitfall, and we all get into it. We have ebbs and flows of excitement when we're making these huge changes, right? And so we want to make sure we're being polite as we travel on our fitness journey. There is a big difference and a narrow line between being proud and bragging. One more time. Big difference between and a narrow line. Big difference, narrow line, and being proud and bragging. It's very important that you don't tiptoe over that line, even just a little bit into the bragging, because you will step on some people's toes as soon as you tiptoe over into a place where you're bragging about what you're doing. And so here's make sure you don't cross that. It's very important, however, on the back end to be proud. So you have to hold strong. You're in your position that you're proud of what you're doing, because if you're not proud of what you're doing, you're less likely to succeed or continue on with it. But you can't be arrogant or brag about it, and it's very hard. But I do have some tips. I think 3 tips here on how to actually do that successfully. So a little side note here, if you guys are taking notes, I'm sure none of you are, but you can watch this video again. So the first one, pride should be something that comes from within. All right, that means you are proud of what you did without the input of your peers. Okay, so you are proud of yourself no matter what anybody else thinks, which means you don't really have to tell anybody, and you're still proud of yourself. So you can ask yourself, why am I sharing this with my support group, with my loved one? If you're sharing it because you need a reaction out of somebody, that means you're going to be tiptoeing into that boastful area where you want a response, you want a pat on the back. Being proud of what you did comes from within. You shouldn't need the input of someone else. You should be sharing that with somebody else, because it's good news, something that you're excited about, and that's the only reason why. You should be comfortable with whatever reaction comes back, and that's a good way to know that you're proud and not being boastful. The second one is, if you're talking about yourself, make sure you continue to only talk about yourself. If you start to talk about something you did and then start suggesting that, oh, you should try this, without the other person's sort of asking you about it, that's another spot you might be saying, hey, look what I'm doing, maybe you should do it as well. And so not that that's not a bad thing. If you have a good relationship with somebody, maybe you can do that. But if you continue to talk about yourself and what works for you and what you're doing, chances are it's not going to become reading as arrogant or boastful. Gwyneth had a comment. Gwyneth Bradshaw, our yoga instructor, personal trainer, dietitian extraordinaire, said sometimes when you decide to change your life, you are so gung-ho that you might be overwhelming or intimidating. This is where that comes in. If you're not getting support you need from your spouse and friends, find somebody in the same boat that they can be accountable to one another. So make sure that you're not intimidating folks as well. And then the last part of how to know when the difference between being pride or being boastful, or being proud of what you did versus being boastful, is to be selective and don't overshare. This will kind of lead into the next one. So be prepared, be selective in what you say. Don't say too much. Say, hey, I had a really good day in the gym today and I'm feeling really good. Be proud of that, right? And if your support group will say, awesome job, or they might even say, tell me more about that. I want to hear what exactly you're doing, versus you saying, man, I gotta tell you. It's a big difference in the delivery. So be selective and don't overshare. And like I said, you might, like Miles mentioned this before, you might just attract some folks to come along with you on your journey to change. Morgan had a lot to say about this topic. He's a wealth of knowledge. He said you can't change others, but in areas you feel sabotaged, bring other support people in and put strong boundaries against those working against you. Others are won over by success, and this is where this kind of plays in. Begin your journey to change and express success to them. Win them over by nagging or pardon me, say this again. Begin your journey to change and express success to win them over, not bragging. So that goes back up. So don't be selective and don't overshare. When you share your success and things you're proud of, you might just win folks over because you're doing a good thing and you're sticking with it, and you're not being boastful. People are turned away by someone who's boastful. So the fourth tactic, or the third tactic into protecting yourself from sabotage would be to build a support team. This is going to kind of happen as you start your journey, because you're going to be around people that are like-minded and doing the same things as you. So if you haven't done that yet, find a support group, find someone who's doing what you're doing, and join in. It helps you to stick to it. And the fourth is, if you need a little bit more help avoiding sabotage, is to find a coach or a professional coach. If you want someone for some extra accountability, a professional coach is a great way to go, and they're going to help train you and keep you focused mentally. It's important. And as we finish up here, I'll review this one more time, but I do want to say that it is very important that when you're training and reaching a goal, that you do these things for you. And this is something that's it's hard to learn, because we want to live our lives from a very young age. We start by saying, I need to impress mom and dad, and then I need to impress my teachers, and I need to impress this, and I need to impress so-and-so. And as you make these changes, even in the fitness world, you're going to try to find someone to say, man, I need to do this for this person. But really, your success is going to be hinged upon where you draw your motivation from. And I think it's good, and it is, it's a good benefit if you say, I want to do this for my kids. But I think one of the best ways to make change and stick to it is when you know that you're doing it for yourself, and you say, I need to do this for me. I'm not trying to prove anything to anybody except to myself that I can do hard things. And I say this, my clients who may watch this later, I've said this to probably all of them. It's them, it's you versus the person looking at you in the mirror, and that's it. As soon as you start to compare yourself to other people, you're gonna get sidetracked, and you're gonna feel sabotaged. You're gonna, be looking over at the next person. It's one of the easiest ways to get sidetracked. It's one of the easiest ways to feel sabotaged, and that's and some folks initially might start doing that early in your walk, and that's why it's important to build that support team around you. So I'll go through these 4 tools real quick, once again, real briefly, to avoid feeling sabotaged. Okay, the first one is to just explain yourself. Very, very important. Explain why you're doing what you're doing. You'll actually probably build your support group, you'll build your team, versus kind of cutting it down if you explain yourself. And be polite, just as important. Make sure when you are explaining yourself as to what you're doing and explaining your workouts, make sure you're being polite about it. Don't be boastful. Remember, it's a thin line between pride and arrogance. It's important to be proud of what you're doing, especially in your fitness journey, because it's hard. Like, it's hard. This is another thing I say in the gym, and I believe it to my heart. The gym is one of the only places that you go in specifically to do things that are very, very, very hard. And a lot of folks, we pay to do it. And so you should be proud of when you walk through the door and say, I'm here to challenge myself. I'm here to do some stuff that is really, really hard, and I'm gonna be proud of it. But make sure when you're proud of it that you don't boast about it. Chances are, if you build a good support team, you won't have to boast about it. They'll lift you up without you saying anything, because they've recognized that you've done something hard and you've done it the right way. The third thing is build that support team. The fourth is, if you need to, find a coach. And so you can add an asterisk to a fifth one there from the top, and that is to make sure you do some healthy pruning of friends who may not be or may not have your best interest in mind. So thank you, Joni and Jeff and Kelsey. You jumped on there at the end. And thanks all who watched. This was our FAQ on what to do when you might feel sabotaged by your friends, family, and spouse. I think if you're going to take some takeaways, if you're just tuning in now, make sure you explain why you're doing what you're doing, and make sure that you're just supportive and that you encourage folks along the way. So don't let someone's negative comment or negative reaction to you cause you to be negative to them. Remember, it's you versus you, and you are trying to get better. And so if you do things the right way, your support group will grow naturally, and you'll have a great fitness journey. And it is a journey. It doesn't really ever end, so it's nice to build a solid team. If you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to check out our YouTube channel and our Facebook page. All of our FAQs are listed there. During this time of the COVID-19 virus and quarantine, we have been posting a workout every single day. We had one live workout this week. We'll be adding more live workouts next week with our trainers as well as the workout of the day. I do want to invite you to come by tomorrow to our Facebook page. I will be going live, and we're doing our workshop. For those that you don't know, that we do a free workshop. Usually it's at the gym on the second month. Ooh, we lost it. This will be a virtual workshop. We'll probably do it right from my home here, right from the same spot. And we'll be talking about what are the tools that we need to build that coveted six-pack or that toned midsection. Okay, and so this is going to be a popular topic. We're going to go live right about 10 o'clock tomorrow, and we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to have core strength and what it takes, what involves the six-pack, what it takes to build it, and then we're going to work on actually go through a workout together. So I invite you guys to come by to that tomorrow. Thank you for all the folks that hung out here throughout this time. This is an interesting topic. We maybe just be personal trainers, but this is real life stuff. There's a lot of mental stuff that goes on, emotional health that goes on in the gym, and it's important that we tackle these topics. So keep the questions coming, guys. We love to answer them, and we love to be there for you guys to provide not just physical but emotional and mental support throughout this time, and just always. So once again, Zach with Fixer Upper Fitness, and we look forward to seeing you next time.